I scream. You scream. We all scream for Baskin Robbins.
Oh my golly gosh.
Started right here.
Where's Scoop's Troop? Go ahead.
They started right here in Los Angeles. I had no idea.
Me neither.
But now I do. And now I'm going to tell you as if I've known my whole life. This ice cream scoop of a story starts with a man with the unfortunate name for a Los Angeles history podcast, Irvine Robbins.
Whoa.
He was born December 6th, the day before Pearl Harbor. 1917, though, in Winnipeg, Canada.
He could have warned us.
So he was born to Polish and Russian immigrants, Arnie and Goldie Chmelnitsky Robbins. That was their name. I don't know where the Robbins came from. But anyway, little Irvine himself.
Nests. Eggs. Go ahead.
Did a bee get them pregnant? Is that as far as I'm aware? Little Irvine became an immigrant himself when his family moved to Tacoma, Washington when he was 5 years old, where his dad opened up the Olympic Dairy Store. A nightmare for you.
Yeah.
Right next door to the Olympic hole in the ground. When he was a teenager, Irvine himself got a job at the dairy making deliveries and sweeping the floor, but eventually they trusted him enough to let him sell the ice cream that they had in the shop.
Let me try to think of a perfect analogy, but this is a really bad one. Sometimes serial killers would use kids to lure other kids. That's what they did. They're like, hey, I need you to go out there and just trick kids into eating ice cream.
I'm just like you. Come on back in this dairy. And that's how he became the Baskin Robbins killer. Put the lotion in the basket.
Baskin Robbins life. Because I'm robbing people's lives.
At this point, not too many people were buying ice cream from this store, from his dad's store. Not in general, but from his dad's store. But he realized that if he just marketed the ice cream in a different way, more people would buy it. So what he did was he gave the dishes zippier, more exciting names. Whereas dad was marketing, come get your 3 scoops of ice cream, a slice of banana, and 2 kinds of toppings. Irvine renamed it to come get your super banana treat. And people bought it. Okay. They were like, oh my God, I gotta get it. So
I can't even eat bananas and I want it.
I'm banana intolerant. And they sold like cold hotcakes. But he sold a bunch of sugary bananas. So what?
Yeah.
What's the big deal? His plan was to get a degree in political science. Work with those bananas on Capitol Hill, am I right?
I want to talk about the bananas in Cuba. And what's happening over there?
The Cuban banana crisis. Just like John F. Kennedy said, hooah! So in 1939, he graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in political science, which he churned into...
he whipped it into something.
He wanted to go into soft service to the military a little bit later, but we'll get into that. All it got him when he graduated was a job with the bigger dairy company that had bought his dad's dairy store. So he was right back working at the ice cream shop. And then World War II hit and dairy had to be turned into bullets. So he enlisted...
Political science was turned into bullets.
Politics out the window. He enlisted in the army, but he had bad vision, so he got stuck doing a non-violent administrative stuff. So
poor guy.
Can I at least use a red pen? Around this time, though, in 1942, Irvine's sister Shirley married a man with the most curious name, Burton Baskin.
BB?
BB-8. A lot of ice cream. Burton Baskin was born December 17th, 1913, a good old American boy from Strader, Illinois. He was an athletic kid that people called Butch. Butch Baskin. Nice to meet you. I'm going to steal your girlfriend.
Thank you for coming to Butch Robbins.
Baskin and Butch's. He was a little Renaissance boy. He was also part of the school band, the theater group, and the business club. Oh. So he also got into his dad's business working at the Baskin family clothing store, Baskin's Clothing Store. In 1931, he went to the University of Illinois, but come time for that big bullet-making party across the seas, the perfectly visioned Baskin became a lieutenant in the Navy. But it turns out, just like his now brother-in-law Robbins, Baskin had a knack for making ice cream. While he was in the Navy, he traded a Jeep for an ice cream freezer, which I didn't know you could... That's not your property.
Dude, there's no engine in that.
The engine's in the freezer. Joke's on you.
I sold my helmet for an ice cream cone.
Since he was stationed in the South Pacific, he started experimenting with all the exotic fruits that were around.
Whoa, okay.
And he was making different ice cream flavors that he would sell to the troops to make money, which I don't get how the military works. Like, you can trade your military-issued Jeep for someone else's freezer, and then you can just sell things, and people have money? What do you need money for?
Why aren't you heading out to sold, like what some dude has like buried in a
Let me go to the ATM.
Yeah. He's buried in a foxhole freezing in France.
Tutti frutti? I don't mean to bother you.
I know your best friend just got blown in half. Do you want a sorbet?
It turned out, though, that Baskin was better at the marketing and business aspect of the ice cream world. But Robbins, his brother-in-law, who was in some pencil-pushing desk job in undisclosed location America, Robbins was better at the creative end. So he started sending recipes to him during the war.
A lot of guys are like opening up a letter and they're like getting broken up with, or like your baby's been born, and there's like pictures of girls, and this guy's like, how about we mix strawberry and banana?
Dear John, 4 scoops of peaches. Oh my God, I can't read it to me. Read it to me.
Read it to me.
So that's how the two spent the bloodiest conflict in world history, mailing recipes to each other and making ice cream in the heart of the Pacific Theater, in the middle of Okinawa, the bloodiest battle.
What's your war scrapbook like, Grandpa?
What did you see during the war? Oh, the blueberries.
I want to read his entry in the things they've carried, because it's just a friggin' soft serve machine. This is all rude, by the way.
Well, he was making ice cream. He was fine. So after the war, Robbins decided he wanted to make a career out of ice cream. Robbins, which is the pencil pusher one.
Yes.
But he had an idea that the best way to sell ice cream wasn't inside of a dairy shop or a grocery store. Instead, he wanted to sell it out of a dedicated ice cream store.
Okay.
So that was kind of a new idea. He seemed to like...
What year was this?
Right after World War II.
Okay.
There were...
Hitler's still bleeding in a bunker.
Yeah,
like,
he's still...
I gotta open up the shop now.
He's still choking on his cyanide or whatever.
Allegedly.
That look-alike was choking on his son. So he seemed to like California, so he planned to open a shop in Northern California. But on a chance trip to LA, he happened to see a for rent sign at a storefront in Glendale at 1130 South Adams Street. So he cashed in the life insurance policy that his dad got him for his bar mitzvah. And with a whopping $6,000 in his pocket, he opened his very first ice cream store, Snowbird Ice Cream.
It's a cute name.
Which is so funny. Not only that his dad bought him a life insurance policy for his bar mitzvah, but that he then
turned
cashed
around.
it.
Dad, this is my life now.
The boy you knew is dead. Today I am a double man. The year was 1945. The date was December 1st, which was almost Pearl Harbor Day, and he had a whopping 21 flavors to choose from. But they didn't make their own ice cream, though. It was just bought by a supplier and sold to customers. But people didn't care, because after just 3 months, he was successful enough to open a second Snowbird on his dad's advice. He said, you should do this again. I know, I disowned you after you cashed in the life insurance, but
you're no longer my son, but you're a good businessman.
You're not my son. You are a man. That is my business partner. Don't hug me. Not much longer after that, he opened a third location, and this is when he started getting bored with just 21 flavors. Yeah. And his old creative streak came back out, and he started asking his supplier to make more interesting flavors like pistachio, coconut, pineapple, and butter pecan. Now I remember what the intro was. We made fun of butter pecan because it's an old people flavor. Around this time, his brother-in-law Baskin, the one making Creme in the Pacific.
Yeah, he's trading ice cream cones for Purple Hearts.
Those are made of grape. He got a purple soft serve. So Baskin visited him in LA, and Baskin's post-war plan was to go back into haberdashery, but during this visit, Robbins convinced him to start selling ice cream instead. It's a fun way to say clothing.
It is. I close a haberdashery, mother, and I'm working in an apothecary now.
That's balderdash. I know this may sound like balderdash to you, mother, but I've decided to open a haberdashery. A what? The past was stupid. He already had experience with ice cream. So Robbins was telling him, you've done this before, and it's more fun to make ice cream than to work with clothes. And he said that if we both ran the stores together, we could be making $200 a week.
Naked, no clothes.
I know you're married to my sister, but I wish you had married me. Today, that would be over $2,000 a week they could be making. Good. That's pretty good. Baskin agreed, but Robbins' dad stepped in yet again with some sage advice. He said...
Use some sage.
Use some sage in every ice cream cone. He warned them not to combine their stores together at once. He said, run them separately, independently, figure out how you like to run a business on your own and not together so that you won't resent each other down the line for having to compromise what you had to do. So that's what they did. Even though they still shared an office in the back room of one of the shops, Baskin decided to call his store Burton's Ice Cream Shop, which opened in 1946 in Pasadena, and by 1948, they had 6 stores between the two of them. Then in 1949, they bought their own dairy in Burbank so that they wouldn't have to rely on a supplier anymore and could have control over the quality of the ice cream, and most importantly, the flavors being made. This allowed them to start franchising locations, and their first of these opened. The first franchise was again open in Glendale. By the end of that year, 1949, they had 43 locations all across Southern California. But as the years went on, they found that too many of the individual stores were making less money than they should have been, and that the two of them were becoming more and more isolated from the customers the bigger they got. So they decided to sell all their locations to those managers and make profits by selling the ice cream they were making at their dairy instead. So that's how they would make money off of that. This made them the first people to franchise an ice cream shop.
Okay.
They wanted to ensure the quality throughout all their shops by giving the managers ownership stakes in them so that they'd be motivated to keep this going well. But they still wanted to have their own place, so they decided to finally combine the forces and open a store that was run by both of them. They wanted to name it after themselves, but whose name will go first? How would you ever decide? Flipped a coin.
Oh, yeah.
Came up, heads, Baskin heads. The first Baskin Robbins 31 ice cream opened in 1953. From the start, the shops were all about fun. They wanted to make it a fun place to be. Robbins always said, we sell fun, not ice cream. But we also have ice cream.
Yeah. I hope that you have fun buying the ice cream.
But you don't have to pay for the fun, but you do have to pay for the ice cream. Their original colors were pink and brown polka dots to give them like a circus clown sort of vibe. They would give kids free cones on their birthday from the start. They always offered their signature pink tasting spoons to anyone who wanted to taste a flavor because they believed everybody should be able to get a free sample
That's nice.
of everything. We'll put that to the test.
Yeah.
We'll see how big their heart really is, how hungry their heart really is for us. They kind of were intimating on their website that they were the first ice cream place to do free samples, but I don't know about that. That can't be
What
true.
about Thebes?
The first person to have free ice cream was Aladdin. We all knew that. So fun and cartoonishness became the brand. That's what it was all about. They were America's favorite neighborhood ice cream shop, and their slogan was, "We make people happy."
Okay. It could have probably went through a second draft, but that's fine.
But what really set them apart was their flavors. Now, to begin with, before them, there weren't too many places around that were a business that only sold ice cream. There weren't a lot of them.
Yeah.
It was usually part of a drugstore or something like that. And on top of that, places usually offer maybe 5 flavors. Baskin Robbins, their whole thing was that they offered 31 flavors.
We got wacky flavors.
Yeah, we can
got
do anything.
Wacky flavors. We got normal flavors.
We got vanilla, off vanilla, darker vanilla, aka chocolate. The reason it was...
We got everything in sepia tone because it's the 40s.
They might look the same, but they're all different. We assure you, they taste different. They taste like depression. The reason it was 31 flavors was because their idea was to have a different flavor for you to try every day of the month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Never thought about that.
In reality, there were actually 34 flavors because they didn't count the classics, vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate, which their original chocolate was made out of a secret blend of 3 different cocos. Ooh. They didn't count that as part of the 31 because those 31 other flavors, they were special. Let's get into the flavors. This is the fun part. They call their ongoing catalog of flavors they've made the Flavor Library, which is a library I'd love to work at.
You're going to need to bring that back in 3 weeks.
Oh, you didn't lick it, did you?
This peppermint is late.
You broke the binding on my fudge. You've got your classics like pink bubblegum and Robin's personal favorite Jamocha almond fudge, which took a 6-foot tall coffee pot to brew coffee to make that thing. You could stand in the coffee pot if you wanted to, and they did.
You taste something funny? You taste something manly?
It tastes like Founder. There was Banana Nut, which was the personal favorite of Howard Hughes, who became so obsessed with it that when they were about to discontinue it, he bought 100 gallons of it. And after a few months, he decided, I like French vanilla instead. And then he decided he liked a different flavor, a flavor with a little more tang, a flavor he could produce on his own. He likes to drink pee.
Got it. Because I was waiting for a joke about long fingernails, and you threw pee at me.
I was just doing what Howard Hughes taught me. Distract him with the nails, throw some pee on him.
The silence was so long, I'm like, oh, wait, did Howard Hughes make Tang?
In a sense. He was certainly the first one to bottle it. Yeah. Then there was a flavor created by Robbins and his wife Irma, which became their top flavor somehow, pralines and cream, which might as well be butter pecan. It became so associated with them, this pralines and cream, that they had to sue Haagen-Dazs when they started making a praline and cream flavor. Robbins said, I cannot understand why people are so dumb. I'm talking about our competition. They can't even copy it right. But what people wouldn't dare copying were the names of their flavors. Yeah. They had Here Comes the Fudge, Holiday Paparazzi, Some Bunny Loves Me, which I guess is rabbit flavored.
Yeah. They
would come up with flavors to commemorate whatever was going on in the culture. When go-go dancing was popular, they had Coco a Go-Go.
That's cute.
When the Dodgers came to LA in 1958, they made Baseball Nut, which had raspberry swirl in the middle for the raspberries blown at umpires.
They put a Daniel level thought into that pun.
I'm telling you, this is my audition to work for the naming department at Baskin Robbins. There was gold medal ribbon for the 1980 Olympics. They also had Banana Bunt, Decathlon, First Down Fudge, and Olympican.
How do you feel about fun names for food?
If it's ice cream, I'll allow it. But if I want to order a burrito and it's like, you want the burro burrito, like, leave me alone. I'm not going to say that.
That's exactly what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, like, I don't like that.
Yeah, I'll have the Chester P. Worthington strawberry.
If it's obvious what the flavor is, if it's like peanut butter flavor and they're like, you want the PP peanut butter?
Yeah.
Or do you want, I'll have a scoop of peanut butter. Don't make me say it.
Don't make me say it. And they won't take your money out of your hand until you say it.
Say it.
We made it.
Say it.
There's one more thing that has to happen for the transaction to be complete.
Say the name.
Say the name. And the lights turn off. And the door locks. There's cops outside.
He's not saying it. Take out the tranquilizers. Use the instant kill code. Speaking of instant kill code, for the release of Thunderball, the James Bond movie, there was 0031 Secret Bonded, which doesn't make that much sense, but the 0031 is kind of fun. Which, by the way, I didn't realize it was 0031 until until last night. And I was like, why is it 0031? I guess it's numbers and James Bond has a number. They had Jack Lemon Ice.
I'd order that.
Charlie Brownie, Last Mango in Paris.
Okay, no.
2001, A Spice Odyssey.
How do you feel about that personally?
I love it. And I'd be proud to order that. Don't try 2010, the year we made contact with our ungloved hands onto your ice cream. It's a long title, but it makes sense. There's Sesame Sweet, Miami Ice, White 2K Chocolate Overload.
What's that supposed to be?
Y2K.
Oh,
and then Computer Overload. I don't know.
Yeah.
One guy said to Baskin, whoever thinks of all these flavors must be plum nuts. Then they came up with the plum nuts flavor. When the Beatles came to America, a reporter asked him how they were going to commemorate the occasion, and he had no idea. And he said, beetle nut. And it was in stores 2 days later.
Oh my God.
You're just putting nuts in it.
Oh my God. I could see him going into the office like, you won't believe what I just said.
Everybody, I know it's Thanksgiving.
I know we've been making turkey ice cream for 3 years now, just trying to perfect it, but you got to put that on hold. I'm so sorry. I messed up.
What are you going to call it when the Beatles have broken up? Yoko.
Oh, nut.
Yoko nut. Mr. Robbins, John Lennon just got murdered. Mark David Cherry nut. John F. Kennedy's just been killed. Hua? The Hua man himself? By the mid-70s, they were coming up with 15 new flavors a year. For the bicentennial, they had Yankee Doodle Strudel, Minuteman Mint, and Valley Forge Fudge, not Fudd. For Elmer Fudd, they had Valley Forge Fudd. It was Valley Forge flavored. For the moon landing, they had Lunar Cheesecake. For the fall of the Soviet Union, they had Gorba Chocolate.
Oh my God. It had a hammer and sickle sticking out of it.
Yeah, you have to eat it. It's a little dangerous, but you got to eat it. When Bill Clinton ran for president, they had Saxy Candidate. They also had Acceptance Peach, Geo Peanut Butter, and Candy Date.
Impeach him.
Unimpeachable. Chocolate Collusion. All these flavors had to be vetted and approved by a man named Les Moffat, which...
His name is a problem.
He himself was created by Robbins. These flavors were created by anybody. Friends, family, employees, even customers would come in and pitch flavor ideas. And if your flavor made it into stores, you were given a golden ice cream scoop, which I would love to have that. But with only room for 31 flavors, not every flavor can last. The ones that have been retired either permanently or temporarily are put in deep freeze, they call it. And people...
Shot into space or what?
Yeah,
It sounds
like
so
Zod.
dramatic.
People have been known to picket the stores when their flavor gets taken away. Like, I want my Gorba chocolate. But even fun-loving Baskin Robbins, they have their limits, and some flavors never make it out of the lab, such as ketchup, bagel and lox, Tarzan and the grapes, Sophia lemon, Nudie Fruity, Grape Britain, Can't Elope Tonight, Berry Goldwater, and I kid you not, Statutory Grape.
You're kidding.
I'm not joking.
They let Howard Stern name one. Jerry Lee Lewis is in town.
They currently have over 1,300 flavors in their back catalog, and people love it. In 1954,
100 for each day of the year. Go ahead.
In 1954, they took their ice cream to the LA County Fair to compete against their more national competitors. This was before they were really big. They won a gold medal and went on to win gold medals every single year after that. They've tried to intimate that they were the first to offer hand-packed quarts of ice cream, flavor ribboning, mousse textured ice cream, and also adding other desserts into ice cream. But I want non-soft serve proof of that before I'll go saying that on a podcast. I can't. Don't quote us. But as much as we wanted to keep this little chain to ourselves, all scoops have to leave the coop sometime. The first location outside California opened in Phoenix in 1959. By the mid-60s, they had over 400 stores in the United States. The first international location opened in 1971 in Toronto, and they quickly moved into Belgium, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Korea, even Australia. In 1973,
do we even know what to do with it?
Soft serve swirls the other direction in Australia. In 1973, there was a new location opening somewhere every other day. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That every other day
What
of
is
the
it, a
year.
gremlin?
They kept getting wet. They are now the largest ice cream chain in the world with over 5,800 locations in 52 countries, over 2,500 of those in the United States. All of these locations are franchises. They were sold in 1967 for $12 million to the somehow rulers of South America, the United Fruit Company, then to J. Lyons Company of London for $37 million in 1973. They are now currently owned by Dunkin' Brands, and their headquarters is now in the far-flung suburb of Los Angeles, Canton, Massachusetts. Their other claims to fame include setting the world record for the largest ice cream scoop pyramid in the year 2000, made up of 3,100 scoops. In 2004, a franchise owner named Mitch Cohen set the record for the most ice cream prepared in 1 minute. He did 19 cones in 1 minute.
Whoa.
And they also have the title of the biggest cup of ice cream in 2005. It weighed 8,865 pounds of pure vanilla. They also paid for the exhibit on ice cream history at the Department of Agriculture. P. Diddy's first job was acting in a Baskin Robbins commercial when he was 2 years old. Former employees include Julia Roberts, Randy Quaid, Rosie O'Donnell, Bobby Flay, and Barack Obama, who also took Michelle there on their first date.
Wow.
But what about those two rascally old men behind all of this?
Yeah.
Both of them embraced the ice cream lifestyle in the way most of us can only dream of. Burt Baskin lived in Studio City, so he was often seen at the Studio City Baskin Robbins location getting ice cream, even though he had a full ice cream fountain built into their home. He was also on the original board for KCET, but he died very young on December 24th, 1967 at age 54 of a heart attack, a day before Christmas and a week after his birthday, which is kind of sad. He's buried at Home of Peace Memorial Park in East LA. Irvine Robbins, meanwhile, was even more into being the ice cream guy. In the early days, he and his wife had 3 kids, so before they became rich, they were mostly living off ice cream. His wife said, with a few vegetables, it's a complete meal. Well, ask the Department of Agriculture. When he got more money, he bought a new car with the license plate 31BR. He had a boat called the 32nd Flavor. That flavor is excessive wealth. Yeah. And they had a house in Encino at 17116 Adlon Road with a pool shaped like an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
You can see it on Google Maps if you look at it. You see the ice cream cone. He retired from the company in 1978, but for the rest of his life, he was still eating 3 or 4 scoops of ice cream a day. He would put a scoop of banana ice cream on his cereal in the morning, which is probably why his son abandoned the ice cream world and became a health food advocate. He lived up until kind of recently. He died May 5th, 2008 in Rancho Mirage at age 90, but he seemed like a really sweet guy who genuinely loved making ice cream. And aside from novelty license plates, a boat named after ice cream, and an ice cream shaped pool, he was pretty down to earth. My favorite quote of him, he said, there I was, a little punk from California, flying into places like Chicago on a jet plane. A jet plane! The legacy he was most proud of, though, he was exposing people to new types of fun and making people a little more adventurous, even if it was just in the flavor of their ice cream choices. So that was his way of just kind of enjoy life a little bit.
Yeah, that's great.